Tashidale everyone, and welcome back to the 22nd session of Introduction to Buddhism series. And Tibet House Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi is delighted to welcome today's speaker, Ajahn Rimala, who will be speaking on the topic Selflessness on the level of emptiness and autonomous substantial reality. So the program aims, this Introduction to Buddhism series is basically aims at the people who wants to deepen their understanding on diverse Buddhist disciplines in order to lay the basic foundation in Nalanda Buddhist Studies. So without taking much time, I'd like to request Ajahn Rimala to kindly proceed the session.
Thank you, Domala. Thank you, Tibet House. Thank you, Geshe-la, for giving this precious opportunity to me. And thanks for everyone who's joined online in the WebEx session, and also all of you who are live on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining. So we'll just begin. Is my screen visible, Domala? Domala, can you see my screen? Okay, great. Okay, so as Domala suggested and mentioned, today's topic for the 22nd session of the Introduction to Buddhism course is Selflessness on the level of emptiness of autonomous substantial reality. So before I begin on this topic, I would say that we should all take it as a talk and as a sharing of what little I know or I have learned from my precious teachers. So I just hope that I just kind of able to give the right information as imparted by my teachers. So we begin with the motivation, as always. So we begin by thanking all the gurus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, especially Buddha Shakyamuni, who came on this earth and gave this immaculate dharma to help us dispel all our perverted views. So infused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the triple gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. So that was a short motivation that we said before beginning the session. So what is selflessness, emptiness, or in Sanskrit it is mentioned that shunyata. So what is that, and why we are studying this, why it is important? So as I've mentioned, this is the essence of what Buddha taught. All the teachings lead to this wisdom of emptiness. So that is the essence of Buddhism. But as I mentioned last time, we should start from where we are. We come to Buddhism or to these classes or to these talks or the teachings that we attend. It's not like, okay, I'm bored and I want to do something, let's go and do something. It's not like that. It's because we are looking for something meaningful in our lives. We have some questions that we want answers. We have some problems that we do not know how to handle them. We have some curiosities which we do not find the correct answers or the satisfying answers to. So the reasons can be umpteen and many. Some students join or come to these talks and classes because they are studying Buddhist philosophy, or they're just studying philosophy in general and they want to know, okay, what is the Buddhist point of view? So there could be many reasons why you come to these classes, to these talks. But at the heart of it, if we ask this, that why we're doing it, it boils down to that nobody wants suffering. Everyone wants happiness. And how much happiness? Is it like, okay, I'm happy, but like if somebody asks me and tells me, no, I did not join or come because I was unhappy or I had problems. I've seen many youngsters who come into Tibet House through these classes and courses. They're in their teens. Sometimes they have not even seen or they know what problems are. So they can say that, I'm happy, but still I'm here. But like, if you ask them that if possible, do you want 100% happiness? The answer would always be yes. That yes, I want 100% happiness. That is the maximum happiness. Then it is that okay, you can have that 100% maximum happiness, but how? So be wisely kind to yourself. Kind to yourself, and then be wisely kind to yourself. It is all about your happiness. It is all about that what is beneficial for you. So you have to know what to adapt and what to abandon. For that, you have to know what are you fighting against? What is it that you need to abandon? What is it that you need to adopt? So that I touched this topic last time also in my talk, know your enemy well. I use a very strong word as such, enemy. We will know that why we say this is enemy and what we term as the root cause for all our problems, afflictions, some problems which we might not see as problems at today, but yes, they can turn into problems later on. The self-grasping ignorance and the self-centered attitude. These are the root causes, the two demons for all our afflictions. So once you know that, okay, this self-grasping ignorance and self-centered attitude, then what do you need to do? You need to learn, reflect, and meditate. How to get rid of this enemy, this particular enemy, the self-grasping ignorance and self-centered attitude. How do we get rid of it? So for that, there are ripening paths and liberating path, which all lead to the wisdom of emptiness. And what is this wisdom of emptiness? This is the selflessness, shunyata, or emptiness. So this wisdom of emptiness, we are going to learn and know and discuss and talk about this wisdom of emptiness today. So it is mentioned in sutras that whatever the Buddha taught, it was meant to lead you to wisdom of emptiness. So we read about impermanence. Impermanence, yes, but ultimately, what is the goal? The goal is the maximum happiness, infinite happiness that lies ahead. That is the goal. Buddhahood is the goal. And impermanence leads to the wisdom of emptiness. So everything, each and every 84,000 teachings of Buddha are meant for us to know, to kind of reflect and meditate on wisdom of emptiness. That is the final remedy, the final panacea to get rid of all our problems. So while I say this, the next we talk about know your enemy. So I think we touched this, and people who are on WebEx, can I ask you to please, if possible, can you put your videos on so that we can have some interactive discussion? Some of you, maybe. Perfect. So why do you think, like as I said, that know your enemy? And I think this is a 20-second session. That is why I wanted to have an interactive session to understand that what is your view on that? The self-centered attitude, self-grasping ignorance. We have spoken about, okay, how to identify presence of which disturbs the mind. We know the afflictions, the miseries, the cyclic samsaric existence, two wings, wisdom and compassion. This is something that we touched upon probably in our previous 21 sessions. So, but it is very important to know that why do we use this term, know your enemy? Any thoughts from anyone? Any thoughts, anyone? Yes, please, Neeraj ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, because if you know your enemy well, then you can, the antidote to that enemy, you can precisely identify.
Yeah, so the thing is that somebody, Neeraj ji, very rightly said that if you know your enemy well, so like if you know your disease well, suppose I have a very bad headache and I say, okay, I take a painkiller and it goes away for a little bit, tiny bit of time. But then it is happening every day, sometimes 2 times in a day, sometimes 3 times in a day. And each time I take a pill, I take a painkiller and it goes away. So am I doing the right thing or am I missing something here? Anybody?
Justly. I think
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
missing something.
yeah, Pampala.
Other than ignorance, we have to look for the cure for the permanently.
Yeah, so that is the key. That until and unless I know that once in a while if I get a headache, it's okay. But if I'm getting a headache daily, sometimes 2 times, 3 times in a day, I'm taking the painkiller. It is not helping. It helps for a very short period of time. But then, as Pempala very rightly said, we do not have a permanent solution. And why don't we have a permanent solution? Because we do not know the root cause of that headache. Right? It might be that I have eyesight problem. I'm not aware of it. It could be as simple as that. I'm ignorant, as Penpala used the word ignorance. Ignorance has many, 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 many layers. So in this particular example, I do not know. I am ignorant about the cause for my headache. It could be as simple as that my eyesight is weak. All I need to do is go to a ophthalmologist, get my eyes checked, wear spectacles, and my headache would be gone. Right? But I have to know the cause. Suppose I first get my eyes checked, eyes are okay. Then I have to go and see the doctor because my problem persists. So you keep on inquiring until unless you yourself are sure that yes, this is the root cause for my headache. And then when you find the root cause, then you have to take an appropriate medicine. It could be an appropriate medicine, it could be an appropriate procedure, it could be an appropriate, like you might be allergic to something, you don't know, right? So you're ignorant about the root cause of that problem. So you have to go deep, 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 deep until unless you are satisfied that yes, this is the root cause of my headache. And you are 100% sure, or at least you are confident, if not 100%, that yes, I can safely say that if I do these measures, if I take these measures, I can get rid of my headache completely. Right? So that is why to know your enemy well, if you do not know, like I'm using the word enemy, it's not like that somebody is going to come and kill me and not. But like if you see this situation as in Sansara, all of you are here. So that means you are into that inquiry mode to know. You are already that curiosity bug has bit you. That I need to know what is it, that what is the meaningful meaning of this life. So you are trying to inquire. Some people might join in to just get a flavor of it. I know, like when I did my first course of Buddhism at the Shita Dharam Court, there I met some certain students. They were like fresh after their schooling and they had just they had just come into this exploration to know and understand the world. So they were kind of going to different places, different countries, going to different seminars, conferences, these talks, these retreats to understand that what does the world think about, what do the other religions or what are the other philosophies and psychology that is there in the world. I think that's a brilliant thing. Before you kind of zero down that, okay, this is what I want to do in my life, we're exploring. So all of you who are listening on the YouTube or here or who have not been able to join or maybe listening later, you have that curiosity bug in you to go deeper and see that, okay, what is it that makes sense? So you have to understand that what is that enemy? How does this enemy work? What can I do to get rid of this enemy? And then when you are sure that, okay, this is the enemy, then you put your energies in the learning. And I need to know, okay, what is the final medicine? And just doctor telling the medicine and you not taking it is not going to help. So you have learned it, then you need to reflect on it and then meditate on it. Meditation is what? It is familiarization with something that you've already reflected and you are convinced, you have that conviction that yes, this is what I need to do to get rid of my problems. Right? So does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that is why it is very important to take a step back and say that, okay, why I'm studying all this? Why do I need to go to these talks? So as we spoke about, ignorance has multiple levels. And Buddha Shakyamuni, he is the only one who taught this wisdom of emptiness. All other branches, all other teachings that you might find a little bit of taste of it here and there in almost every religion. Almost every religion will tell you to be kind, be compassionate, take care of others, take care of yourself. They have their own principles, philosophies to guide you there. Almost every religion talks about a self, and they go, and specifically the philosophies and the religions which find their origination in India or this particular peninsula, the Southeast Asia part in the ancient times. So all these traditions, they focus and they try to answer this question that what is this self? And then they have their different viewpoints. And what is this self? And then what are they looking for? Why do we need to know the self? Because they somehow realize that the world that we're living in, this is not the ultimate reality. There are reasons behind this existence of ours. There is something which some people call moksha, some people call nirvana, some people call Buddhahood, some people have a different viewpoint that, okay, you go into heaven, you go to God in the higher realms. So they have a different viewpoint, but everything is focusing on what after this life. What is this self? And why do we need to know about the self? Because they're all thinking that, okay, everybody knows, every person who's born on this earth knows that one day that person is going to die. So what after that? What after that? There is a quest, science, everybody. They are all kind of looking for the answers that, okay, what next? But for what? Because they need to understand, they are curious, they need to understand about existence, about our own existence, about the existence in this world. Right? So that is where. So before we come into this thing, I found a very interesting article on one of the websites, and there was this picture there, and these words were written there. I've just cut, copy, pasted from there. So, I don't know how many of you have seen this movie Matrix. Has anybody heard about it? Yeah. So I think Neeraji, you have, Pampala, you have. So in this Matrix character, there are two characters, Morpheus and Neo. And it seems that the Neo is the so-called the chosen one. He is the one. That is the language that they use in that movie. That he is the one. He seems to be a pretty ordinary guy in the beginning, but Morpheus knows that, okay, he is the one. So when Morpheus meets Neo, he sees and explains that it is not the true nature of the reality. These are not my words. This was what was there in the movie. And we might say that this is a fiction, but it makes sense if we kind of look back and reflect a little bit. He says it's not the true nature of the reality. And the author here says, no, he does not say that the world does not exist. So when we are reading or we are trying to know or discuss about selflessness, emptiness, or shunyata, I think most of us get scared and we try to reject it at the very mention of the word emptiness or shunyata, because we equated that to nothingness. That if you're saying emptiness, if you're saying self is empty, if you're saying everything is empty in the emptiness, everything is the nature of emptiness and selflessness, that is the third seal, that means you're saying nothingness, that there's nothing there. But even in this movie, which is supposed to be fiction, they're not saying that. They're saying he does not say that the world does not exist. He offers the hero Neo, a choice between a red pill or a blue pill. He says this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. So it is for that section of us who do not want to go ahead and say that, okay, I want to know the truth, or do not have that curiosity, or do not have that inclination to find out that is there something beyond to what I'm seeing. They would like to believe, they would like to say that, okay, whatever I'm seeing, I'm experiencing, that is the reality right now, period. I don't want to go beyond that. If I ask you, where is Damala? I say Damala is here. Fine, I found Damala. My job ends. I've seen Damala directly through my eyes. I don't want any other valid cognition or any third person to come and tell me that what I'm seeing is not correct or what I'm seeing is not real. I believe in it. So it says that if you decide to take the blue pill, you live your life happily or sadly, or whatever the way with beliefs that you're living on, you go on living that way. But if you take the red pill, you stay in the wonderland, and I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. So if you belong to the category who are curious, who want to know that, okay, what is that ultimate reality? And that ultimate reality is not something privy to me or privy to Buddhist. This is a reality which is not, I don't have a copyright on. Nobody has a copyright on. Truth is truth. Reality is reality. And if reality is reality, you go deeper, 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 you should be able to find it or get a conviction that yes, this is a reality. And I think this is where Buddha Shakyamuni said that you do not believe or practice or respect me out of, listen to my teachings or practice them just out of respect for me. Just as a goldsmith cuts the gold, checks the purity of the gold by cutting it, rubbing it, burning it. You put my teachings to test. And then if it resonates with you, then follow them. So I think this is beautiful. What could be more in terms of when they say Praman, a valid stamp that Lord Buddha could give to us. And how much confidence you would have that, okay, yes, this is the truth. And if you find it yourself, then you would also have that confidence that, yes, this is the truth. Right? So if you want the truth, then we begin the journey ahead. But if it's that blue pill or the red pill. So if you belong to the category of the blue pill, then I think probably you need not listen to the rest of the talk. Be happy, or not put too many thoughts in it. You attend the talk, listen to it, and say, okay, good, bad, have your views on it, and not do anything about it. But if you're in the category where you say that no, this is intriguing, I want to know how deep the rabbit hole goes. And believe me, it can be really, 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 really deep. And still I think I must have missed a lot of really, really, really and deeps in between. Right? Because as some of the masters and teachers say, it is like an onion, keep peeling and there's another layer. Keep peeling, there's another layer. Keep peeling, there's another layer. Right? So that is the truth. That is the ultimate truth. And that is what a level of it, what we're going to discuss today as selflessness in the context of the level of emptiness of autonomous substantial reality. Any questions so far? Okay. Excuse me, I think I've jumped too many pages. So when I'm saying level, so that means there are various levels of this ultimate reality. So you might have a question that if you're saying this is the truth and the ultimate truth, then why there are levels of ultimate truth? Ultimate truth should be just one. Why there are so many levels? Mm, that question can come to your mind, that curiosity can come to your mind. That in Buddhism itself, Buddha himself has taught all these levels, not as the 5 levels that are listed here. These 5 levels have been taught to us, are very kind, Venerable Geshe taught Nizamullah, as to make this, to make us, help us understand these levels in a better manner. You won't find these listed as 5 levels anywhere, but yes, these are all talked about in most of the Buddhist texts, sutras, and precious texts and teachings. So, what are these 5 levels of selfness or emptiness? And why were these 5 taught? Why did Buddha just not teach the last level? And from what I understand with my limited understanding, I think this is because this is another proof that Buddha Shakyamuni was omniscient one. He knew that there are innumerable number of mental dispositions and sentient beings that are there. Not everything is going to appeal to everybody in the same manner as it does to one person. The other person might feel it differently. During his time also, there were, as I said, there were many traditions. And at that time, there used to be a concept of debating amongst the various schools and philosophies and ideologies. And whosoever won the debate, the other guru with all his disciples would convert to that tradition. So it was very important to cater to all possible level of questions or curiosity levels that can be there in the sentient being's mind. And it can also be seen as a gradual understanding which will take you there. So my goal could be that I want to have a PhD. My goal could be that I want to become a doctor. But can what you study of being a doctor, the dissection and all, can that be taught to a kindergarten kid? No, right? So you have to, when a kid is put to in a kindergarten, he or she is taught at the level of his understanding in the way in which the kid will understand and generate interest to know and learn things. And as and when the kids grow, they move to the next level, the next session, then the different levels change. At a point, you're taught all the subjects, right? We've all been through the education system also, right? In our education system, we are taught all subjects, whether we like science or not, whether we like maths or not, whether we like geography, social studies, geometry, English, languages or not. We're taught everything till a certain period of time. And then you're asked to choose your subjects. So why is that? That is to give you direction that, okay, you understand, having got a little flavor of everything, a little bit of everything, you understand and you know what are your interests in, what are you good at, where would you like to excel. And depending on that, the kid chooses, or the teen, the adolescent adult chooses his or her subjects. Then they go to the college, they do their masters, then their doctorate or whatever they want to do. So gradually the levels increase, and gradually your confidence also increases. So, and there were different schools at that. There are different schools in Buddhism which have a different view and levels of the level of emptiness and self-interest that they taught. Like Buddha said in the third seal, everything is a nature of selflessness. In certain sutras, it is written everything is a nature of selflessness and emptiness. In certain sutras, it is just written everything is in the nature of selflessness. Right? So he just said that, and on the commentaries, depending on that commentaries, each and every person or school or master at that point of a time interpreted it along with the third seal and with the other teachings. They had their own level of interpretations. Then how do I interpret it? And as I said, all the teachings lead to this wisdom of selflessness and emptiness, to know, to make you understand this wisdom of selflessness and emptiness. Right? So every person is trying to understand and take out the meaning of this particular wisdom in their own manner. Right? So that is why there are 5 levels of selflessness, emptiness. The first one is selflessness of permanent unitary independent self. This is primarily because during that time in India, there were a lot of philosophies who believed in the existence of Atman. Right? Some of the Indians, you might be aware of this term, but for others, it might be a little new or something that you have not heard of. So they believed in an Atman, which was a permanent unitary independent self. They said that Atma is something which does not die, which is solitary, does not depend on anything. It remains forever. It does not age. It does not die. It never gets sick. It is a permanent entity, which and this is particularly for those philosophies who believed in rebirth. This whole concept makes sense only if you believe in rebirth, right? So they say that okay, this Atma is what that leaves your body and goes into another body and takes another life, another birth. So the first level is where we just reject that particular notion, that level, the selfness as a permanent unitary independent self. Right? Then the selflessness of autonomous substantial self, which is the topic for today also. Then we will go in detail about this after I finished just enumerating the 5 levels. The selflessness of external reality. So there's a school, Chittamatra. So I think you must have heard about the 3 turnings of the wheel in the previous sessions. So in the first session, the Buddha taught that everything exists truly. In the second wheel, the Buddha taught nothing exists truly. So then there were certain bodhisattvas who, I think, on behalf of a lot of community and intellectuals at that time, asked this question to Buddha, that what did you actually mean when you, in the first turning of the wheel, when you said this, and the second turning of the wheel, you said nothing exists. So how do we interpret it? And that is when the Buddha taught the third seal, which Chittamatra school, the Chittamatra philosophy is based entirely on that third turning of the wheel, where Buddha explained that. So in short, we are not going into much detail on that. So in that, they say selfness is of external reality, where they say that everything is in the nature of the mind. There's nothing external. Then there is a further, then come the 2 Madhyamika schools, where the first is Swatantraka Madhyamika. Swatantraka Madhyamika further has 2 divisions. I'm not going into those divisions now, but they basically believe selfness is of true existence, but not negating inherent objective existence. I think this is a huge topic. I know you might have a lot of questions that what do you mean? What is the difference between inherent, objective, and true, and all that. So I think being an introduction to Buddhism session, not going into depth on that. And then finally, the Prasangika philosophy, selflessness of objective existence. This is the ultimate medicine, selflessness of objective existence. And anybody who wants to know or get into that rabbit hole and know how deep this is, you have to get into systematic studies, and even that is not just going to be enough. A lot of learning, reflecting, meditating is required, and a thorough learning is required to understand the nuances, the different nuances. And our precious teacher, Venerable Geshe Dorje Dandula, he is giving us, he has been teaching us on these topics for a very, very long time now, and are being taught as part of our Nalanda diploma courses and the master course, Nalanda master course. Right. So now we come to the second level. So I think we all understand that the topic for today, we're going to discuss about the selflessness of autonomous substantial self. Now, let's just take a step back again and see that what do these words mean? When I say autonomous, when I say substantial, what do they mean to us in general sense? So I have certain things that I kind of borrowed or from the internet, but like just by hearing, what do you think this means? Autonomous, substantial. Anybody? Just talk about your understanding of the word autonomous and substantial. What do you think this is? Anybody would like to take a guess at it? Anyone? Autonomous, substantial. What do they mean to you? Just the word. Forget about any Buddhist philosophy or anything. Just as the English word autonomous, substantial. What do they mean to you? Or what do you think they should mean? As per you, what is your understanding? Anyone? Yeah, Neeraj, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, I partially had started reading your slides also, but in
Yeah.
a sense, I was on the autonomous part is very often like, I think
Mhm.
something you also draw upon that even when you talk about governed units, there's an autonomy in
Yeah.
an area. So,
Mhm.
something which has its own governance. So, it's drawing from partially reading your thing also. And substantial, as in there is something there which you hold on to, like some substance.
Yeah, that's a very
Uh,
important point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
yeah, wonderful. This is beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Neeraj. And anybody else would like to share their thoughts? Anything? I mean, just from an English word, what does autonomous or substantial mean to you?
It just means by yourself, by itself.
Yeah, Sharala. So yeah, beautiful. Yeah, by yourself. So that's the autonomous. And what do you think would substantial mean or translate to?
Substantial meaning having a permanent substance, existence as a material object.
As a material object, something which is permanent. Beautiful. Again, thank you so much, Sharanji. So yeah, so we have this, and this is exactly, I think, what I mentioned in my slide also, that when we talk about emptiness of autonomous substantial self. So again, well, while I mentioned this, we have to be very cognizant and be mindful of the words being used, because this has been translated into English. English is not something, is not the language in which the sutras were written or spoken about, right? They have been all translated. So we have to very well understand, like, and why I've particularly chosen here autonomous versus independent, because if you read the language, and I will leave you to read it. I think it is it visible enough for all of you to read? Yeah. So, like, if you talk about refers to self-governance, which Neeraj said, then Sharalna said that all by itself. So that also refers to not being dependent on anyone. So it could be like that we are just talking about meaning of autonomous, independent, etymology here and there. But in a nutshell, we say that autonomous is the adjective form of the non-autonomy, as what Neeraj said, right? An ability to act on one's own or govern oneself. We are not, it means that it is not dependent on anything. It is not dependent on anything. It can sustain itself on its own, if you might want to call it. As I'm talking about the word autonomous, I've still not got into the Buddhist meaning or the context here. So when we are referring to individuals, autonomy means ability to live one's life according to one's own term. You could say like that also, that I want my autonomy. That is an independent autonomous body. So they are not kind of, they don't answer to anybody. They're not answerable to anybody. They have their own set of rules. They govern themselves. They live their life according to them. So they're living in an autonomous life is a very general way of say that we can put on it. Then independent, it also refers to being free from outside control. Again, when we are saying autonomous, the focus is on that, okay, I am an autonomous body, right? At that time, I'm concerned that, okay, I'm able to live on my own. I'm my self-governing body. I have an ability where I can exist on my own. I do not have to depend on anybody else. But autonomous saying that, okay, what all I can do on my own, I can live on my own. When we say independent, it is that you are negating dependence. That I'm not being dependent on anyone. I'm not in the control of anyone. They might translate in the end or mean the same to some of us, and some of us, for some of us, the word independent might appeal more. For some of us, the word autonomous might appeal more. But when referring to individuals, independence is referring to taking one's own decisions and not depending on another for livelihood. Right? So you would see a contrast. If you talk about the way of living or the way of existence, more or less they mean the same, right? But it is the difference is where that how are you identifying? Are you saying that I am this autonomous person, or are you saying that I'm not dependent, I'm an independent person? It might translate to you the same thing, but the way you are putting it across, the way you are expressing, there is a difference, right? So yes, autonomous, then on the right hand side, this is taken from a dictionary. So they're saying they having the right or power of self-government, undertaken or carried on without outside control, existing or capable of existing independently. Then they've given an example that, okay, how this this word autonomous can be used. So I think we are clear on the word autonomous in terms of what does it mean in a normal parlance, right? In a normal language that we talk about. And we understand that, okay, it is a matter of expressing. It is a matter of identification that how we use the word autonomous, synonymous with it. And what about substantial? So as Sharanla said, that for her substantial would mean something material, right? So if I say I have two hands, you can all see my hands. In one hand I have this rosary, in other hand I have an imaginary rosary. So what would you say? That if I ask you in which hand I'm holding a substance, what would you say? Yeah, you would say that my left hand in which I'm holding the rosary, I'm holding a substance in that. What would you say about my right hand? That this is empty. It does not have anything substantial. I said that I'm holding an imaginary rosary, but then for you, you can't see it. So you will say you might say you have an imaginary rosary in your hand if you have been a student of Venerable Keshala for a long. But normally you would say that this hand is empty. This does not have anything substantial in it. Yeah, there's nothing in it. But this hand has a rosary in it. That means there is a substance here, right? So I'm labeling it that, okay, I have a substance based on a thing which I'm holding in my hand. And in this hand, I say there is no substance. But in this hand, is the absence of rosary in my hand? Yes, right? But from a substantial point of view, from a substance point of view, when I ask you, do I have something substantial in my hand? Your answer would be that you don't, right? So this is a very normal way of understanding autonomous and substantial. Now, coming to the autonomous substantial self, that why it is important and how it is important here, and what is being said here when it say that emptiness in the context of emptiness of autonomous substantial self. So like I said, now when you're seeing me, are you seeing a complete me, or are you seeing a part of me?
Freemaji.
Yeah. Are you seeing a complete Rima, or are you seeing a part of Rima?
Part of Rima.
Okay. What is it that you are not seeing?
Your bottom.
Yeah. So you're just seeing a part of me. You're not
Yeah.
seeing my complete body. You do not see the back of my head,
Yes.
right? You do not see my back. You're not
Mm,
seeing my legs.
yes.
Right? But still you're able to identify that I'm Rima.
Yes.
Yeah. But you're not seeing a complete me, but you say that I'm Rima, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now you all have your cell phones in front of you, right?
Yeah.
So if you see the cell phone, you're just seeing the screen. You're again not seeing the back of the cell phone. I'm just talking about the outer appearance right now. There are too many things inside me, the phone and everything. I'm not going into that right now. In terms of appearance. So when you go to identify something, is it necessary, or is it like always that you see the complete thing and then you identify? Think about it and give me an example where you see that, okay, this I can only identify when I see the complete 360-degree view, otherwise I will not be able to identify. Can anybody think of any example? Where you can surely identify that particular thing or object only when you see the complete of that object. Is there anything? Think about it. Take a minute. Just look around the room that you're sitting. Think of the people around you in your life. Think of your everyday use articles or objects. Anything. Do you at one particular instant or time see the entireness of a thing ever?
I don't think so. Freemaji.
No, right? Yeah. So I also can't think. So how do we how are we able to identify things? So
I
we are
think
able
like
to
yeah. I
yeah,
think
Pembe.
like Gisela said, when you see the smoke, do you assume there's a fire? Is that like that or?
No, that is an inference that you're
Okay.
not seeing anything at all. You're inferring that okay, if I'm seeing a smoke, that means there is a fire. But like seeing me, are you seeing me, right? You're seeing me
Yeah.
directly, right?
Yeah.
So how are you able to identify me?
I know you're Rimaji. That's how
Yeah. So
able.
Damala, so people who are seeing me for the first time, they say Damala introduced that this person is Rima Goenka. So and she is speaking on the topic
Yes,
today, so she must be Rima Goenka,
that's right.
right? So you would identify me based on my body and what I'm saying, what I'm
Appearance.
talking, what my appearance,
Yeah.
right? And it is not necessary, and rather not necessary. All it is 100% of the time that we interact with the conventional world or the world that we do not see the completeness of an object to say that this is this, right? So what does this mean? That you are identifying me based on something which is not me. Is that an okay and a correct assumption or a statement to make? Yeah. So you are seeing my face, you're seeing my arms, you're seeing my upper part, you're not seeing my complete body. But is this just this part? Is it me? No, right? There's more to me, right? I would like to believe there is more to me than just what is being visible on the screen, right? So you identify me depending on something else, which is not Rima, correct? Yeah. So look around. So when you see anything, when you see a flower, right? So when you see a flower, you will see a flower petals, maybe the little part in the center, and then you identify this is a flower. But that little part, those 2-3 petals from the front view that you're seeing, is that the complete flower? Is that the flower? If I take those 2-3 petals off, does the flower go away? No. But you identified the flower based on those 2-3 petals that were visible to you. Maybe more petals. In terms of a rose or a other bigger flowers, you'll see many, many, many petals. But just a part of that, what is visible to you, if I remove that part, will that flower disappear? No, right? So that means that that flower is not just that part which is visible, but you are identifying the flower based on what you are seeing or feeling or touching. Right? So if you look around anything, it's not just about the visual object. Even for the sound. Yeah, even for the sound. You assess something based on a part of it which is getting into your ear. If I take that away, will my sound be not there? It will be there, right? So you identify something as something else which it is not there. So that means that when you identify, like in terms of the self, there is a mind and there is a body, right? So when you talk about a person, say when I say, okay, where is Neeraj? So Neeraj would raise his hand that I'm here, right? I'm here. So then you ask that, okay, I can say that, okay, Neeraj is wearing spectacles. He seems interested in the talks. He's been coming to most of the talks, right? He seems to be a kind person, right? So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about Neeraj's characteristics, right? So when I'm talking about that he's kind, what aspect of Neeraj am I talking about? Is it his body which is kind, or is it his mind which is kind?
Mind.
So the mind is kind, right? So, and when I talk about that, okay, about height, like I have a very short height, and a lot of my niece and nephews, they're very happy when they cross my height, and they cross it even when they're 10 or 11 years old, right? So when they're talking about that, what aspect are they talking about me? It's about my height, my body, right? So when you're talking about somebody, you either are mentioning the characteristic of a body, you're referring to the characteristic of the body, or you're referring to the characteristic of the mind, right? Is there anything that else that comes to your mind that you can talk about a person, or think about a person, or identify a person with? No, right? So so that means that what is this self? We are identifying the self based on the body and based on the mind. If I take out the mind, is just the body me? No. If I take out the body, the mind is left. You will not even come to know that the mind is left. And where is that mind? So that mind is also not me. But I'm identifying the self based on the body and the mind, which are not me. Does this make sense? Right? So I think put focus on the words that I'm identifying the body based on something, identifying the self based on my parts which are not me. Now, if most of you, I think, have attended Venerable Geshe-la's classes. So when he talks about, identifying yourself, there is a verse by Nagarjuna that the person is not earth, right? So when you examine your skin, is this just the skin me? No. So what are we hinting at? That if I'm identifying myself based on my body and my mind, right? If I take away one, do I still exist, or do I cease to exist? It's on the basis of the body and mind that I'm identifying this self. This self Does so and but do you actually in your normal life think in this manner, that I am identifying Rima based on something which is not Rima? Do you actually think like that? No, right? Anything that we interact with, we do not think like that. What do we think it as? That Rima is something which exists on her own. Now, please pay attention to the words that I'm using here, that you identify me based on the body and the mind, which are not Rima. But at the same time, you think that the way you interact with me, you think I'm existing independently. I do not exist. My existence does not depend on how you are actually perceiving me or how you are identifying me, right? So how do you see me? Do you see that I'm talking on my own? I can take my own decisions. Now please recall the previous slide where we use the word autonomous, right? I'm taking my own decisions. If I want to move my hand, I move. Okay, if I have some problem and or something, I'll not be able to move my hand. There are times when I'm not able to. So, but then what? I am the governing part, right? Do you think you have a role to play in that? The way you interact with me. Do you think you have a role to play in that? No, right? So you identify that, okay, if somebody is doing something good or bad, you attribute that what a great thing that that person did, or what a bad thing that that person did or didn't do, right? So you assume that person is the one who's responsible, who's independently doing those things. Based on what? Again, the body and the mind. Body and the mind, right? So based on that. So how do I appear to you? I'm definitely appearing. That means you can see me, right? There is an obstruction. You can't right now pierce through me if you kind of go here. So you see that there is a substance here, right? And that substance is dependent on this body and on this mind, and it is appearing as autonomous. So how do I appear to you? I appear to you as an autonomous, substantial, real person, right? So how does this self appear to you? As an autonomous, substantial person, and not just respect to me. Now let's just take a minute and we just reflect on yourself. So the way you spoke about me, do you see yourself as that? Or do you see yourself as being dependent or being governed by somebody or something? Even if you say that outside conditions or external conditions are forcing me to do something, but who's taking that decision? Who's doing those things? So do you see yourself as dependent, independent, autonomous, substantial, or not substantial? How do you see yourself? Right? So I think we would all say that if I think like this, yeah, I exist, but and I think I'm autonomous, substantial. I'm autonomous and I'm substantial. And this is what the second level says when we say the emptiness of autonomous, substantial self. In very plain and simple language, this is what it means, that what you are thinking this self to be, that is deceptive. That is not the truth. So is it something, that we need some miracle power for us to understand? No, right? We can use reasonings, we can use logic, we can use our own experience to say, but we have been conditioned for such a very, very long time, beginless time, to be precise, to view things like that as autonomous, substantial, real. We do not see them as dependent. We do not see them as that, okay, what you see, like they say, it's either one, either if it is autonomous, and independent, right, then if I take out this part of me, still you should be able to say this is Rima. So there are only two modes by which you can say that something can exist in an autonomous substantial manner. I have parts, right? So either I am my complete parts, either that is me or one of my parts is me, right? So there are only those two ways in which you can say that, okay, this autonomous substantial real self can exist, right? And they say that they say that they both statements are not true. I'm not one of my parts. We have established that, right? And I've also established that I'm not different from my parts. When it comes to identification, you use those parts to identify me, but I am not one with the parts or different from the parts. So in simpler terms, this particular thing just means that what you see as autonomous substantial real, that is deceptive, that is the ignorance of us to see that things exist in this manner. So that is the first point. Now going back to the slide, how do you identify? It is done through dependence, not autonomously, but by dependence on identify something. Something I made little bold here. It's something. We're not getting into that okay, it could be anything, but because your perception could differ from mine. But you all attribute some characteristic of me depending on something else which is not the self. Thus, there is no substantial self, something substantially existent out there. Right? So that is why we identify in the self and we say that emptiness of autonomous substantial self. Two ways, as I said, if independent. If independent, then should be either one with the parts or different from the parts, but both are not true. Then the other two is some technical terms that are used in the Buddhist philosophy when we read about tenets and other topics. You will know. I just mentioned them here so that if you hear somebody talking about it, you would know. So putative self is what? It is the imputed self. The self which has the characteristics of both the physical and the mental, both the body and the mind. That self is known as the putative self. Putative means impute. And what is the ignorance? That we believe that this putative self is the substantial self. Right? Imputed here in this particular level, in this particular context, you will hear this word imputed at various levels in various talks and everything. Just at this particular level, this would mean that imputed means it has the characteristics of both physical and mental, and it is labeled. We identify it as something else. Right? We don't identify it as the body and mind separately. We label it something as Rima, like Rima. And this is also that Rima is the putative self. Putative just means impute. And what is substantial self? When we speak about substantial self, we're talking about the self beyond the imputation. Is this self findable? This is a food for thought that I will leave you guys today to think that if I find something when I look for it, then that should be the substantial self. Now, having said that, this is this picture again I found from that particular website only. So a good example is your car. If you take that car apart, like this is showing if all the parts of the car separately, right? So right now what you would call it? That these are parts of the car. Will you call it a car? No. So you will call it that these are just the car parts. When I put it back together and I give it a label Hyundai, it will become a Hyundai car. And if somebody gives it the label as Honda and identify it as a Honda, it will become a Honda car. But again, it's not just this. We go by conventions. We follow conventions. The way I assemble the car and the parts that I'm using, it's not this that I take the parts of a Hyundai car, assemble it and then label it as a Mercedes and then it will sell it as a Mercedes. That is not going to happen, right? Because we're talking about conventions. Again, broken down to that, what are you going to identify that with? So when you say a Hyundai car, there is a mental imputation in your mind, which would, based on which you will identify a car to be a Hyundai car, and it will be based on the parts only. That if the car has this, Hyundai has this, Honda does not have this, Honda has this, Hyundai does not have this. Mercedes, the car would be this, the length would be this, the body would be like this. So this is all what? This is all conventions. Our conditioning did not have, taught us we have not even realized that how fixated our views have become with these conventions. This is how we identify the world around us, right? So this is how we label ourselves also, right? So a simple example with that. Then this is just a small view in terms of how the different schools would say that. So when I say this, now Vibhashika, for them, the selfness of person, selfness of permanent unitary independent self, going back to the 5 levels, they say from Vibhashika that is the gross selfness of the person. And the topic that we spoke about today, the selfness of autonomous substantial reality, that is the subtle selfness of the person, right? They do not talk about the selfness of phenomena. Then Satantrika, the next school, again is similar to Vibhashika, but but it's not just this, that they're exactly same. When you read about the 2 schools, how the schools interpret the word autonomous substantial, okay? How do they interpret the word impute, right? So there is a different flavor. As I mentioned in the beginning, that the terms remain the same, but then how do you identify them? What do they mean to you? For each school, their philosophy, the subtle level increases. Right? Chittamatra, as I mentioned in the earlier, for them, this they talk about selfness of person and selflessness of phenomena. So for the selfness of a person, they would again say permanent unity independent self. The selflessness of permanent unity independent self is the gross selfness of the person, and the selflessness of autonomous substantial reality is the subtle selfness of the person. But emptiness of external reality is the subtle selflessness of phenomena. And for them, emptiness of external reality is the highest philosophy for them. Then Svatantrika Madhyamika, from after Chittamatra are the 2 Madhyamikas, Svatantrika Madhyamika and Prasangika Madhyamika. So Svatantrika Madhyamika, they force the philosophy in terms of labels remains the same. Selfness for the gross selfness of the person, it is the selfness of the permanent unitary independent self, and selfness of autonomous substantial reality is the subtle selfness of the person. And when they talk about the selfness of the phenomena, they talk about emptiness of true existence while not negating inherent existence. And this is a very specific term again. And Prasangika would say that emptiness of autonomous substantial reality is the gross selfness of the person, and emptiness of objective existence is the subtlest and the final ultimate reality. In this person phenomena, everything comes. For all other schools, the subtlety of the emptiness that you realize, the selfnesses that you realize when you directly see the emptiness, there is a difference for the person and phenomena. But for Prasangika, it means the same. There is no difference. It means the same. There is no difference in the subtlety of the experience that you get. So this is in brief about a very brief introduction to this vast topic, right? And in the end, I would just like to read out certain quotes and certain quotes from the sutras and certain masters which they say. I think in the beginning I said, that when we're talking about emptiness, a lot of people would say that, okay, that does that mean that I do not exist, right? So if Arya Nagarjuna mentions it at the venomous sake, he's credited with saying that emptiness wrongly grasps is like picking up a poisonous snake by the wrong end. Right? So there is a poisonous snake, you want to pick it. You want to pick it up. You want to hold it. So would you hold it from the mouth or from the tail? So there is a poisonous snake. If you hold it by the tail, you can hold it. But if you're holding the venomous snake by the mouth, then that's the end of it. So that means this is very, very scary and dangerous to not get the correct view of emptiness or selflessness. So therefore, Buddha taught the middle way, which implies avoiding extreme views such as substantialism and nihilism. Both concepts run contrary to the notion of emptiness. So when you get the correct view of emptiness, you would see that they both marry well together. They both gel together. They both make sense only with each other. One does not make sense without the other. Right? And this is also what Lama Tsongkhapa in his 3 principal aspects of the path said. I think it is mentioned in our prayer book called in the Blaze. So there is a paragraph there where it says interdependent appearance and infallible emptiness. As long as these two are seen separate, Buddha's insight is not understood. Right? So we have to strive to know what does it actually means. This is a very, I would say, not even introduction. And I think introduction for this topic could also be very, very vast. Right? So this is just probably I'm just mentioning it. Right? So then King of Concentration Sutra, I'm reading from the top now. Just as in the dream of a young girl, she met with a boy and saw his death. Joyous was she at the meeting and anguish at his death. We all phenomena as thus. Right? So there are different schools, presentations, examples that they give to understand. And the dream example is the most commonly used by Chitramatra and the Madhyamikas, where when you are dreaming about something, you experience that joy also, you experience the sadness also, but when you wake up, does it hold any good? It was a dream. It was a dream. When you wake up, you've forgotten about it. Even if you're not forgotten, you will not be carried away with it for a long time. Some people are impacted by their dreams also, but it will not kind of impact you as if a certain thing which happened in the dream happens in reality, what you call as reality. Right? So this is from a sutra. Then Upali requested sutra. The various delightful flowers blossom, and the sparkling supreme golden abode stands so alluring. For none of these there is a creator. They are posited by the power of thought. It is through conceptualization that the world is imputed. So if you see the words here like conceptualization and imputed, for each school they would carry a different meaning. Again, this is a sutra, so that means most of the schools would accept what is written in the sutra, but how would they interpret it would depend on their own philosophy and the level of the school that they are doing this. Then His Holiness Dalai Lama teaches the emptiness is the knowledge of ultimate reality of all objects, material and phenomena. As I mentioned in the beginning, that what Neo was being offered, I will just offer you the truth, just plain simple truth. And if you want to know this, you have to get into the rabbit hole. Then one of the Venerable Rinpoches mentions, and he points to the Einstein's theory of relativity for a concise explanation of emptiness. He says that the theory of relativity gives you Buddha's idea of emptiness. The essence of emptiness is the interdependent nature or dependent arising of things. The essence of emptiness is not empty. Right? The great Tibetan yogini Machig explained emptiness as a source and inseparable essence of all phenomena. It represents the totality of all that is and all that will come to be. All that is today, all that has happened, all that is in future. For without emptiness, there would be no space for existence. This is the opposite of nihilism and could be better described as inclusivism of substantialism. So I think these great masters have their unique way of using the words to help us explain this beautiful concept. Then the great Zen teacher Thich describes emptiness as empty of separate self. That means none of the 5 aggregates can exist by itself alone. Each of the 5 aggregates has to be made up of the other 4. It has to coexist. It has to be interbe with all others. Now, this is a very new term I also came across that he's using, interbe. Right? The term interbe has become something of the modern day equivalent to the Sanskrit term shunyata with some Zen teachers. And the great Yogi Milarepa is in one of his 100,000 song sang, mind is insubstantial, void awareness, body a bubble of flesh and blood. If the two are indivisibly one, why would a corpse be left behind at the time of the death when the consciousness leaves? And if they are totally separate, why would the mind experience pain when harm happens to the body? Thus, illusory appearances are the result of belief in the reality of the superficial. Right? So, some very profound statements. So, with this, I think I come to the question answer session. I'll stop the sharing. I'll be happy to take a few questions if you have any. Anyone, you can raise your hand, or Kamala, please help me if you see some hands being raised and if I'm not seeing it. Yes, Neeraj, please go ahead.
Rimala, I just wanted to ask you, this quote by Yogini Machig is from which? What's the reference?
There is an article on Buddhism Weekly,
Okay.
right? So I took it from there.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just, I mean, I had not read that one before. I liked it. So the others I had seen somewhere or the other, but not this one. So it was very nice. Yeah.
So if it is all a cut, copy, paste
Yeah,
technology,
yeah.
maybe it's there. So, and when it comes to this precious, valuable topic, I would rather not use my words
Yeah.
and use the words as said in the sutra and by the great teachers and Rinpoches. And
Yeah. And sometimes you read one presentation, you know,
yeah,
like a bulb lights up. So I like that also.
yeah. So that is
Thank
what
you.
I'm saying. You know, that I mentioned in the beginning that each of us have a very different mental disposition and likings, dislikings, our own conditioning.
Yeah.
You know, so imagine if there was just this one ultimate truth being presented. Everything is empty of objective existence and period. That's about it. You know, how many of us would be able to grasp it or understand it, right? So I think I am really, really very thankful to Buddha Shakyamuni who came to this earth to give this precious teaching. I'm very grateful and thankful that I'm born in an era where His Holiness lives, where we have such wonderful teachers who are there to teach us, even though I don't know Tibetan, I don't know Sanskrit, in which these precious texts are written. You know, we have teachers like Venerable Keshe Mullah, His Holiness, who also gives teachings. We have his teachings translated into English. We have so many books and sutras now being translated into English, and I just can't thank enough to all those sources, you know, that we have this treasure because of their kindness. And I always, when I thank these masters and teachers, I always thank all the Tibetans. And I feel sad also at the same time that it is, you know, that this is how this interdependency and, you know, this thing works. You know, I always pray that it is because of their sorrow, how much of sorrow, pain, hurt, separation, you know, despair, I don't know how many families had to go through and are still going through. And if that had not happened, how this treasure would have been in Tibet and remained in Tibet, right? So, we all owe. Even if think one quote, one teaching has made even a tiniest little bit of difference in your life, I think that person should reflect on the interdependency, that how much we owe and how much you know, that whatever benefit that we have got is because of suffering of so many people also. So let's not forget that, and let's acknowledge that too. Yeah. Yeah, Roshni ji. Roshni Sen ji, you want to say something? Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, hi. I have a question. Is the emptiness of autonomous substantial reality applied to all phenomena?
Yes, it applies to all phenomena, but each and every school, when they talk about person and phenomena, they talk about it in a different manner. So again, that is a different topic and a dimension. But in a loose sense, yes, it applies to everything. Yes.
Okay, because like according to Chittamatra, it is not applicable to mind. So it's not applicable to all phenomena. But I mean, this
Yeah.
is actually a
So
question
as
that
I
was raised in one of our classes.
yeah,
And yeah, it just went back and forth, but you know, didn't
see,
really come to a final conclusion.
yeah. So I think you're touching on something which is again a part of the tenets. And when I was mentioning Chittamatra and I was talking about the substantial self, there is an open question that I left. That is this self findable? And if you find
Right,
something, that is the substantial self, right? So when they say emptiness of autonomous substantial reality, so and when they say self, they say that okay, so when we're talking about emptiness of substantial reality, we're talking about how are you identifying the self.
right,
We are not talking about the mode of existence. There is a difference. I'm
right,
just leaving a term there, So there is a difference in terms of when you identify something as a self and when you're talking about the mode of existence of self or a phenomena,
right,
right? So when we're talking about emptiness of autonomous substantial reality, it is about it. It focuses on identifying. It does not focus on the existence, the mode of existence,
right,
right? So that is why, and every school have their different philosophies and tenets. So when you read about tenets, when you go deeper into that so-called rabbit hole, you will understand the certain nuances there. And what you're saying is absolutely correct. For Chittamatra, the mind is autonomous substantial real.
right,
Mind is not empty of autonomous substantial real. But when you say that the putative, when you identify the putative self, what Chittamatra thinks is the putative self, when you identify that putative self as a substantial self, that is the illusion, that is the delusion, that is the ignorance. Right?
right,
So there are various levels of ignorance that you peel one by one and you understand and then get it to the final reality. Right? So
right,
each school has a different presentation in terms of what they call. Each school would say that we are following the middle way. Right? There are two extremes: absolutism and nihilism. I've spoken more about nihilism in the talk today because absolutism, we know we live with it daily, right? We believe in the absolute existence of things, phenomena, us, our problem, our pains, this world, everything, right? So that is something that we believe. We are already at that extreme of absolutism. But when we hear about this concept, there is a danger of going into nihilism, that nothing exists, nothing matters. So each school, they talk about that, okay, yes, I follow the middle way. Again, that's a different topic in our study in terms of those nuances, that how does each school say that I follow the middle way, right? So that is something, Roshni ji, which I believe if you're part of any of the Nalanda courses, you will get your answer in due time. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually a question that was raised in one of the Nalanda courses class, and there was
Okay.
a long drawn you know, Q&A, but finally,
Yeah.
I mean, the ultimate thing was well, we still haven't studied Prasangika, so
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think right, so it is not something in terms of knowledge learning, as I said, you have to go to that deepest part to understand each and you will have these nuances, these questions, each philosophy, something will appeal to you, something you will have question again that, oh, if they're saying this contradicts this, right? Then wait till you get to the next level, or if you do not want to wait till the time the teacher comes to that point, you have a discussion with the fellow colleagues or your seniors in the courses to talk about it.
right, right,
Right?
yeah. Thank
So
you.
I don't think so I answered your question completely, but did I give a clue to it somewhat, Rajni?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right, great, thanks. Yes, Neeraj ji. Yeah.
Reema ji, while answering Roshni ji, you made an important point in a sense, though it's basic, but it's very important that could you just repeat it about the knowing the difference that please remember here, this is how you identify yourself and not how you exist.
See, there is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, see, different schools and the different levels as such. So, when I was talking about autonomous substantial self, I was using the word, how do you identify yourself, right? I did not say that I do not exist substantially. I did not say, that I exist independently, right? So it is, one is a mode of existence and one is how you identify with things. What you think is like, how do you identify something to be there? So, so there is a difference between, again, this is a huge topic in terms of identification of the self and mode of existence of the self. For some schools, the two will not have a difference, right? For some certain schools, they would say that okay, they both are same. They would say that how you identify, that is the mode of existence. For some people, some schools, they would say that no, what you have realized or what you are seeing or what you're talking about is just at a very gross level in terms of identifying. It still does not touch upon the existence, the mode of existence. Right? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Pempala, please.
Reema ji, I really appreciate your time.
Thank
How you present, put everything, put your time on it, and then make us understand, visualize it. And this was really profound and was.
I
Every
don't know that it
time,
is
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
yeah.
it is, as a layperson, because like you said, um, Buddhism is according to when you express, when you present according to from the kindergarten to the above. So, because we all are in a different level and our understanding is a different level.
Yes.
So it's really helped us, many ways, we all understand in a different experience, different situation in our life. But, I would really thankful for the Tibet House all the time. Obviously, His Holiness, we are, like you said, we are very, very lucky to have this platform, have this, conversation, and then also able to hear, understand. And I really like the concept which you show us, the Honda car and the part of the car, right? Because somehow we feel like, okay, I'm Penpa and this is whole me, right? But then when you look for it, search for it, it's totally different. So it means there's no Pampa, right? It makes you think a lot, who you are actually. Yeah, rather than you looking outside, you make us think like what is inside. So thank you so much. I
Thank you so
really
much,
appreciate
Pempala.
for the
Thank you so
time
much for these
and
kind words. So,
everyone. Yes.
yeah. So I think the key thing here is not to say that there is no Pampa, but I would say that the key thing is to say that whatever we are seeing, experiencing, take a moment to think that that might not be real. And I'm not just talking about in terms of, talking about identifying or in the mode of existence, but just if you get into, because for me at least, there are certain, scientific videos which talk about illusions and delusions that we have. And if you see them, you would know and understand that how different, at even science, even there are so many people who know that it is a perception. Reality is as per my perception. My reality is my perception. And for me, my perception is reality. So I think if we give that benefit of doubt to us and I think all others around us. So I think we talked about emptiness. So I'm just going to leave you with a thought about the second wing, the compassion wing, which is also necessary. That when we deal with the outside world, if we start acknowledging or at least telling ourselves, that we need to understand that each and every person has their own perspective. They have their own realities and not realities. And try to see or understand near and dear ones also from that perspective, or person whom you think is trying to harm you or not good to you. To just give a benefit of doubt to begin with. And I think that benefit of doubt, if you condition yourself to give that benefit of doubt itself, it's not just that I've done it. I'm just saying it because I'm also trying to do it. Not every time, you are conditioned to do that, because I think, as I said, we are conditioned to look at things, identify things, and all these afflictions, they just come like this. And it has been there for beginner's time. It will take a lot of time. Right? So I think all the best to all of us.
Thank you,
with,
Rimaji.
so I think I'll leave you with that thought and this presentation. Thank you, all of you, for joining. All of you who are online, who are present on this WebEx section. You could have had 1,000 things that you could have done in this time. You chose to come here, listen to us, listen to this talk. So I'm very grateful. I learned a lot from all of you. And as Pampala also said, that if there is any way that something appeals to you or it makes you think, I think the purpose of the talk, the why this Introduction to Buddhism talk series is being held by Tibet House, that is met according to me. But and I just want to thank all my teachers, my gurus, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas again for giving us these beautiful teachings. And I dedicate all the merits that we have all gathered here by listening and by contemplating and talking about and thinking about this ultimate reality, that by virtue of our merits being accumulated, may all beings everywhere be happy. They perpetually engage in virtue and be away from non-virtues and always be happy, or always be happy. And from our two collections, vastest space that I've amassed, working with effort at this practice for a great long length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. And even if I do not reach this, may I be held in a loving compassion for all lives Manjushri, and may I find the best of the complete graded path of the teachings, and please all Buddhas in my practice. May all the gurus or spiritual practitioners have long, healthy, happy lives. May all their wishes, prayers be spontaneously fulfilled. In all my lifetimes, may I never be separated from the perfect gurus. May I enjoy the magnificent dharma, and by completing the quality of those sages of the path, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. And may this be true for all sentient beings. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Domala. Thank you, Tibet House. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tidurmala.